but there are many legal experts who say the other way. If I can quote to you what Mr. Harish Salve, former Solicitor General and a constitutional expert of some standing, he said and he stated that Article 370 was imposed at a time of Pakistani invasion in 1947-48 and it was meant to be temporary in nature. So does Aryama Sundaram,
look,
so does Subhash Kashyap.
I won't argue with the legal acumen of Harish Salveji and others. I'm not a lawyer and therefore my sort of assessment of the situation is based more on logic but also on the conversations I've had with lawyers. But let's take your premise that it was temporary and ask yourself, why was it temporary in nature? Because the accession of the Jammu and Kashmir to the Union of India was premised on the fact that it would be ratified through a, what was it? Yes, it was to be ratified through a United Nations mandated plebiscite. In the absence of that plebiscite, and you could not have had a permanent feature to the Indian Constitution for a state whose accession had not been ratified as permanent. Now, over time, we come to understand that, look, accession has happened, it cannot be rolled back. It is a fact and it will continue from there. But the circumstances that led to accession, how can they be temporary? By all means, if the circumstances that led to accession are temporary, then by that logic, accession was temporary as well, and accession had to be ratified. Now, I am not calling into question accession. By the same extension of that logic, I will not call into question the circumstances that led to that accession. Please understand, on the 15th of August 1947, it wasn't two countries that emerged. It was actually three. Jammu and Kashmir did not accede to the Union of India. It did not accede to the Union of Pakistan. The Maharaja at that time asked for time and was actually inclined for an independent Jammu and Kashmir. Circumstances forced his hand, and therefore he looked to India, acceded to India. But that accession was conditional. It was conditional on the Union of India being responsible for currency, communication, and defense. I mean, these are facts.
Mr. Abdullah, yes, whatever you are saying is a part of history the way it was, as was the fact that it was meant to be temporary. And allow me to ask you, you're probably the third generation since then. 75 years of Indian independence is what we are going to begin in a few days from now. Do you think time ever stands at the place it was 75 years ago?
I would have no problem with that argument of yours. If you had told me in 1947 that these circumstances or the relationship, the constitutional relationship between Jammu and Kashmir and the rest of India would be time bound. Let's take, for example, the Chinese with Hong Kong or the Chinese with Macau. You knew that at a particular point in time, either the Portuguese flag or the British flag would come down and the Chinese flag would go up. So no argument with that. But when Jammu and Kashmir, the Maharaja, the government of the day negotiated accession, and accession was conditional, there was no time limit to that condition.
Mr. Abdullah, I want to ask you, everybody has the right to see things their way. But sometimes, doesn't one have to pause and think that in 75 years, do you think you can sail in two boats? वो कहा जाता है ना कि आप दो कश्ती में पाँव नहीं रख सकते।
हम कौन सी दो कश्तियों में पैर रख रहे थे? हम तो हिंदुस्तान की कश्ती के साथ थे।
तो अगर आप हिंदुस्तान की कश्ती में आपने पाँव रखा, तो ये पाँव परमानेंट अगर हो रहा है,
हमने कब कहा कि पाँव परमानेंट नहीं है?
प्रॉब्लम क्या?
हमें कोई तकलीफ नहीं है। हमने कब कहा कि ये पाँव परमानेंट नहीं है? लेकिन हमने आपसे कहा कि कश्ती में चढ़ने से पहले आपने हमारे साथ कुछ वादे किए थे, और वो वादे मतलब किसी फर्द के किए हुए नहीं थे। आप ये नहीं कह सकते हो, मुझे बात करने दीजिए। आप ये नहीं कह सकते हो कि ये वादे जो हैं ये कांग्रेस पार्टी के थे या ये वादे जवाहरलाल नेहरू साहब के थे। ये वादे मुल्क हिंदुस्तान ने जम्मू कश्मीर के लोगों के साथ किए, और उन वादों पे ये मुल्क पीछे हटा। उस पे हमें नाराजगी नहीं होनी चाहिए। अगर आपने उस वक्त हमें कहा होता कि ये वादे जो हैं ये 70 साल के लिए होंगे या ये 80 साल के लिए होंगे, ठीक है, फिर हम अपनी जगह ये तैयारी करते कि 80 साल के बाद ये निज़ाम बदल जाएगा। लेकिन हमें ये कहा गया था कि जब तक जम्मू कश्मीर भारत का हिस्सा रहेगा तब तक भारत के ये आइन के अंदर जम्मू कश्मीर का जो हिस्सा है, जो स्टेटस है, वो हटके होगा। उस वक्त आपने फिर हमारे साथ ये वादा क्यों किया था?
वो समय और था।
नहीं, समय और नहीं था। नहीं ना, ये मत कहिए, ये बहाना है, वो समय और नहीं।
पर इसमें वादा क्या, टेम्पररी का भी वादा था। आप अपनी बात को कहते हैं कि वो वादा था, टेम्पररी भी वादा था, क्या आप उस वादे से नहीं मुकर रहे?
कौन से वादे से हम मुकर गए?
कि टेम्पररी था। और ये
मैं
जवाहरलाल नेहरू ने 1963 में पार्लियामेंट में कहा।
मैंने आपसे कब कहा कि टेम्पररी नहीं था?